The SAT loves this kind of percentage question. And we're definitely going to arithmetize here because I know that it's not really asking me ever for the values of A, B, or C. So it doesn't really matter. I know that. But I will say also that this kind of format where you've got a bunch of different interrelated percentages is very common, even when it doesn't read exactly like this. Sometimes they'll layer some sort of story on top of it. But remember, anytime you see percentages in a question, you got to be nervous and think about your formulas. So the first sentence here, let's just take it one sentence at a time. The number A is 70% less than the positive number B. Right away, my instinct is, let's make B 100. So that 70% less than that, well, 70% of 100 is 70, so 70 less than that is 30, right? So I get two arithmetized numbers very quickly, right? And so I'm arithmetizing because I don't want to be dealing with the percentages changing and having a bunch of letters on top of that. Let's just focus on one thing. Now, if I wasn't super comfortable with that particular arithmetize there, I could just use the formula, right? I would still make some number 100, so I would still make B 100. And then because it's less than, we're going to use the 1 plus or minus formula, right? The than is pointing my original to 100. 1 minus 0.7 or 70 is my 1 plus or minus P. And it's minus because it's less than. And then that gets me a new value. And you can see where the 30 comes from. This is 100 times 0.3. And that is 30. So you could do that in your head because 100 is a nice number to take percentages of. But you could also just use the formula if you're unsure. And we're going to need the formula now. So the number C, switch colors here. The number C is 80% greater than A, right? So I can't do that in my head because now A is weird. It's 30. But I can still use the open formula, right? So I'm still going to use the same formula. So the number C is, so my new is C, 80% greater than. So that's 1 plus 0.80, right? And A is my original, and A I now know is 30, right? So this is coming down to go into that spot. So now it's just 30 times 1.8 is C. I would just grab my regular old calculator for that. So 30 times 1.8, and that is 54. So now I have my three numbers, right? I have A is 30, I have B is 100, and I have C is 54. So what do they want me to do? The number C is how many times B? Just turn that into an equation. It's a sentence, but it's very mathematical, right? So let's write it without plugging in for B and C yet. Let's just use the letters so that everyone can follow, right? So the number C is equals how many? Well, how many is X, right? So X times B. So times B. That's it. That's that whole sentence there. C is how many times B. Now when we plug in, right, I can say, okay, C we said is 54. We don't know X, and we know B is 100. So I think that sentence is very hard to think about when you think of it as a sentence. But when you just kind of write it out as an equation, normal math instinct takes over, which is let me just divide by 100, and there we go. So yeah, let's divide both sides by 100. And you don't need a calculator for that. You should be able to divide things by 100. 54 divided by 100 is just move that decimal place. So it's 0.54. And that's it. That's the answer here. So 0.54, you don't need the leading zero, but I like to include it. And that's that. We're done. This is so much easier because I arithmetized. And there is no circumstance in which I wouldn't have made up numbers for A, B, and C. I'm probably, whenever I arithmetize with percentages, going to make one of the numbers 100 because it just makes it easier to think about. But it doesn't really matter in the end. That's the whole point of arithmetize. You pick any number. And since we have a calculator or Desmos, we have the ability to work with whatever the percentages are. And we're just using these formulas essentially. It was just that because I picked 100, I could kind of skip the first step and skip that formula because it's kind of easy to think about. But it's not necessary. So don't be afraid of picking the right numbers or the wrong numbers here. Like it just pick something and get started. But you have to recognize this as an arithmetize. At no point are they giving us a value or asking us for a value. So it tells us the value doesn't matter. All that matters, or all that they're giving us, is the relationships between the values. Those are perfect opportunities in all sorts of cases in the SAT to arithmetize, because I have a hard time understanding a relationship if I don't have things to relate. So arithmetizing gives me those things, gives me those numbers. So a lot of percentage questions are going to involve an arithmetize, but at bottom, you still need to know those open formulas and be comfortable working with them.